Okay, folks, we're going to talk about vocabulary today, pertinent to the genetics unit. Introduction to Gregor Mendel and heredity. First one is gene. If you don't remember what a gene is a segment of a chromosome, DNA, that codes for a trait. All right, remember, a trait is a characteristic. Your next term is alleles, or an allele. Anybody remember what that is? Say it if you do. An allele is an alternate or various form of a gene. These alleles may be dominant or recessive. Remember, dominant having the big letters and recessive having the small letters. So what's the dominant allele? It is the form of a gene that is always expressed when present. Remember, they're the big letters. They're dominant over the small ones. May mask the recessive, meaning if they're together, the big and small letter, you will always see the dominant letter, whatever trait it carries for, expressed with a capital letter, and T is the most often used example of that capital letter. So the opposite of the dominant would be the recessive allele. The recessive allele is a form of a gene that is expressed in the absence of the dominant. The only way you see the recessive allele is if there are two small letters together. The recessive allele may be masked by the dominant, meaning if it's heterozygous, you won't see the recessive allele, you only see the dominant. And it's expressed with a lowercase letter. Again, our example is T. Another key term is genotype. A genotype is the combination of alleles that codes for a trait. In other words, the genotype are going to be the letters that you will see. Here we have the homozygous dominant. Here we have the heterozygous pair, one big, one small. Here we have the homozygous recessive. And those are key terms you're going to have to remember. Homozygous dominant, heterozygous, homozygous recessive. The phenotype is another key term. The phenotype is defined as the expression of a trait. It's descriptive. What that really means is what trait you're looking at. Tall, short, blue eyes, brown hair. That's the phenotype. The genotype are the letters. The phenotype is what you actually see. And that brings us to homozygous. Definition: two of the same alleles in a genotype. We know that homo means same. Here are your examples. Again, homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive. Heterozygous is our next term. Heterozygous is defined as two different alleles in a genotype, or more simply put, one big, one small. Heterozygous coupling right here. Okay, that'll be all for your vocabulary. Any questions, please contact me, Mr. Fioli, Mr. Reichley, anybody else you'd like to speak to about biology. All right, thank you. See you soon.